It's been 3 weeks since I did the familiar summoning ritual to call for my spiritual guide to aid me in my craft as a newly initiated wizard. Since then, there has been nothing. No fox, no owl, no cat, no raven, as I had hoped for. I was certain I had done the ritual correctly, as instructed in the spell book. Though written in Hindi, I was sure I had correctly translated the writing, the incantation, before casting the spell naked in my backyard at midnight, facing north, east, south, and west, in that order, and saying the incantation while facing each direction. The circles and sigils drawn on the ground were pristine, and in my left hand, my offering to the spirits, a white dove. Grant me a familiar, I chanted that night, my voice loud and clear. One to aid me in my craft, to share my burden, to serve as my companion. The air shifted with a hum, and distant and faint voices. The words they spoke were unclear, and then, nothing. Disappointed, I went back into the house to clean my feet and retire for the night. The preceding days and weeks have been uneventful. The disappointment I had felt after has waned, and I have half accepted that the spirits didn't deem me ready or worthy enough to receive my helper. Life has been like it always has, at least until I noticed her. She was small, slightly dark-skinned, and dressed in a thin white nightgown that looked as though it belonged to another century. Her hair hung in tight braids, and her wide eyes followed me everywhere. I first saw her when I left my compound to visit the market. She stood at the edge of the forest, unmoving, staring. I waved, unsure of what else to do, but she didn't respond. She just stared. That night, as I peered out my window, I saw her again. It was raining, and she stood just beyond the gate, the rain dripping from her tangled hair. Her tiny hands clutched the bar as she looked up at my house with an unsettling stillness. For several nights, this continued. I found no footprints where she stood, no sign she had been there at all. I spoke to the neighbors, to the town social workers. They assured me no child had gone missing, and when I brought them to see her, she was always gone. "Are you feeling well, sir?" one of the workers asked gently, her eyes filled with concern, while the others gave me awkward glances. I wasn't sure anymore. Even the neighbors claimed they never saw anyone outside my compound, even nights when I saw her and phoned them to look. All of them claimed to see no one as she stood staring at my house. One night, as it rained harder than I had ever seen, the kind of storm that drowns sound and cloaks the world in shadows, I saw her again, completely still by the gate, seemingly oblivious to the rain that poured on her, her bare feet sunk into the mud. Something in me gave way, pity, guilt, perhaps something deeper I didn't yet understand. I stepped out of the house and walked up to her. She remained still, almost as if she didn't notice me approaching. First time in days I was close to her and realized she was extremely emaciated. her loose and baggy dress hiding her build. Her eyes, though slightly larger, but not enough to be concerning, didn't seem to belong to a child. They were too knowing, too ancient. "Are you lost?" I asked, and she shook her head. "Come in." With a smile on her face, she held my hand, and I walked her into the house, water pooling on the floor as she stepped inside. Handing her a towel, I asked, "Where are your parents?" But she didn't reply. She just stared at me as if she didn't understand the question. "You can stay here tonight," I said, finally, though my unease was growing. She sat silently in the corner of the room, staring at the fireplace I had lit to warm her. Her presence was suffocating, but I couldn't place why. The next day, as I prepared for work and thinking of where to take her, the early morning news came on. A woman's voice spoke of a missing child. Her photo displayed on the screen. Light brown skin, dark braided hair, wide eyes. It was her, the girl in my house. She was sitting on the floor, cross-legged in front of the TV. I turned to look at her, heart pounding. "That's you," I said, my voice trembling. "You are missing." She turned to look at me and tilted her head, and for the first time she spoke. Her voice was soft and almost musical.
"I'm not missing,"
she said, with a smile forming on her face.
"You summoned me."
My blood ran cold. Wait. What do you mean?
"You called for me some weeks ago. I am your familiar,"
she said, simply, rising to her feet as she stepped closer. Her form began to shift, her limbs elongating, her face twisting into something that wasn't human, and her hair turning into a squirming mass of worms and bugs. Her eyes vanished, leaving behind empty dark sockets on her face.
"You didn't specify a form I should take,"
she whispered, her voice echoing unnaturally.
"You just asked for a companion, and this is the form that was most convenient.
Her smile, now too wide for her face.
And now, I am here, and I am yours, and you
she said.
are mine."
I stumbled backwards as she advanced, her shadow stretching unnaturally across the walls. What did you do to her?" I asked, and afraid of the reply she might give. But she said nothing as she reverted back to her previous form and walked back to sit where she sat before.